This is the Michael Brighton Show. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. And today I'm joined with Juan Betancourt, who is the CEO of Humantelligence, which combines HR and technology to get the most out of companies, staff, you name it. So, Juan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
So talk to us a bit about HR, because a lot of people are going to be rolling their eyes, wondering, oh God, here we go, HR conversation. Let's see how this goes. Some people have a more negative relationship with HR than positive. So talk to us a bit about why HR was your thing, why that was what you're passionate about, and why did you decide to improve it and change it?
Great question. So I started my career out of an Ivy League school, working at some of the largest companies in the world, like Procter & Gamble, Reebok, Puma, a company in Europe called Decathlon, and then some software companies like Siebel Systems and Oracle. And yes, I feared HR. It was like the function of fear. And it was about, how could they protect the company from getting sued, and how could they brush out any dissent, right? And so that was kind of my view as well. But at the same time, HR has went from a personnel department and human resource department to more of a human capital management department over the years. And now it's even, you get titles like chief people officer, right? And so I started to realize that HR, with the right tools, with the right vision and leader, could become something that would be a differentiator for companies and unleash the power of their people, not squash the power of their people. And so I was blessed to have worked at Procter & Gamble, where HR was more of that, where you saw it as an enhancer and an organization or a function that could accelerate your career, and you could plan. I mean, this is back in 1993. I could plan my 10-year career at Procter & Gamble back in 93. I could say, I want to start in Puerto Rico. I want to go to Cincinnati. I want to go to China. I want to go to Africa. And they literally would then have a development plan associated with that every year, the 7 or 10 things you had to accomplish. And if you did all those things, you could literally carve your career for the next 10, 15 years any way you wanted. So, and they invested in talent development and training. Fast forward 20, 25 years later, technology is the new thing that's going to allow HR to unleash people. And that's everything from letting people work from home, which I think most people, 80%, are blessed now that they can be at home and be near their family and get 2 hours more out of their day for working out or spending time with friends and doing things. And that's all because HR, if it's done well, has figured out how to let some people work from home, some people work in the office, and figured out the hybrid model. So HR is the enabler for being able to be distributed and remote and hybrid. And I think that's one of the most transformational moments in society that's being driven by good HR teams, right? And technology like the one at Humantelligence that we've developed, that lots of HR companies like Coca-Cola, Accenture, BASF, Aflac, and several others are putting in, which allows people to be themselves and be recognized and seen for who they are. And, scaling psychometric understanding at one's fingertips for all employees, so they can write emails better, they can meet together better, have better virtual meetings, collaborate better. This is reducing friction and making people happier at work, and allowing companies to align where people are naturally built to succeed with jobs that put them squarely to high performance and to a better career progression. And so HR is really today something with technology, a blessing for employees.
What I was actually quite curious about is how being people focused versus just the output focused can have the same outcome. Meaning, if you focus on the result all the time and increase in productivity, increase in motivation, that might take away some of the benefits of working there. They might not enjoy it as much if they're solely focused on how productive you are, what the result is. But if someone's happier at work, if someone's motivated to go in, they understand the mission behind what the work is that they're doing, that can be enough to then impact the numbers further downstream. And talk to us a bit about that, because I think some people struggle, some industries might have a harder time listening to it than others. But how is that relationship working? How does it operate?
Yeah, so it's been shown in all the different Harvard Business Review articles and research at the top business schools like Wharton Business School that these companies that are quote built to last, to reference that famous book, um, where employees stay longer because they're more engaged and employees are more successful for the company and for their own careers. It's usually companies where you're right, they've tapped into the psyche of the employee and motivated them because the mission and vision of the company is aligned with the employee and their value system. And the reward system is not 100% performance. Take, for example, Procter & Gamble, where I worked. I was amazed, coming out of college, that I would get promoted and get a pay raise based on two things. One was purely performance. I was the brand manager for Tide detergent for the Caribbean and in Puerto Rico. It was called Ariel. For sure, I had to increase revenue and profit by like 5% on the top line and like 3% on the bottom line. And performance was key. And part of that performance was a 360 evaluation by others. So I would be more of a team-oriented person. So if you could hit all the numbers, but everybody hated you, you wouldn't get bonused. You wouldn't get promoted. But if you could hit all your numbers and be a team player and respect others, you would get your full bonus, right? Or actually, you were eligible for half your bonus. The other thing that they bonus you on, or that was a function of your bonus, wasn't just performance. The other thing was, it was a phrase they used, have you built the organization? And I was amazed by that. And I didn't understand what that meant. Like, build the organization. It wasn't meaning like take some bricks and help build another wing to the building. Building the organization for Procter & Gamble was, we know that the future of this company is inside the heads of our employees. And we know that if we stifle them and tell them everything to do, we the organization, will not know what's coming. But everyone who's in the weeds, touching the customer, for all 200,000 employees, if we can tap the entrepreneur spirit and the innovation from each person to build the organization in different ways, then we will succeed. So literally half of your promotion and bonus depended on, did you build the organization? And things such as, did you mentor other people, even though nobody asked you to? Did you come up with some new ideas, not only for your business, but for other people's business? Because how many times you're at lunch in a big hall, mess hall, and you're hearing other people talk about their businesses and you have an idea. Well, if a company doesn't motivate you to then write that idea down and send it back to that person you overheard in lunch, you would never do it. What's in it for you if you're right? If there's a process that was frustrating to you, that was basically stifling your ability to do your job in working with R&D or working with supply chain or working with finance, and you could improve the process for the entire organization so that it wasn't just going to help you, but help 10,000 employees all do a better job, you were building the organization. Everyone had the power to be a mini CEO and improve anything in the entire organization. And they were given a megaphone to identify problems and fix them bottom up. And so every year they had this thing called OGSM, Objectives, Goals, Strategies, Measures. Every year they would kind of lay out for the company, for the divisions, for the different sector, healthcare, the consumer, laundry detergents, etc. These objectives, goals, strategies, and these massive programs to focus on fixing something and doing it better. All those, although the actual programs came from the top, the ideas for them always came from the frontline workers of the company. And it was the most powerful thing I've ever witnessed in any company. The only other company that does it similar or is as good as that is a company in France called Decathlon, the most successful retailer in the world and sports manufacturer, much bigger than Nike, much more successful than Nike, but it's privately held, so people don't really know it as much. But that was, that's what they bonused us on. It wasn't just performance. It was building the organization and being a team player. And that can go a long way. And that is timeless. That was 30 years ago, and today it would still apply. And no technology in the world can get around those kind of, aligning rewards with what the company needs to scale.
I wonder if there's anything that you can point to that can help other companies start to employ this, start to use this, start to do this, because I can't help but wonder if there'd be a company out there that would listen, that would trial this, and then it not work, or let's say profits might drop, or retention might not increase as some people may have thought that it did. You know, when you sort of think, okay, people
Oh,
will
right. Well,
experiment, people will try it, and then it not actually have the benefits that they want.
imagine if you're a sales oriented company selling a product or service and everybody's just all about the numbers and the numbers. And like any salesperson who doesn't hit the numbers gets fired. 100% of the energy, 100 units of your energy in that company, whether it's sales or if you're supporting sales, is going to closing deals. What I'm just recommended that Procter & Gamble does, you would definitely see a hit on revenue in the short term, because any units that you're now helping other people in the organization doing things that are not to close a deal, there's only so many hours in the day. Let's say you start to spend 20% on all these other things, you're going to reduce sales. I don't know if it's 1-to-1, but let's say 10% down. Now, what's interesting is, whereas that company, if they don't put in this, I'm going to just call it the Procter & Gamble methodology of building the organization, they might succeed year 1, year 2, year 3, but something might happen where an innovation in the industry, a new company with a better process or applying new technologies is going to come around. And in 5 years, that company is going to be like a Titanic. They've been maximizing sales and everybody's got their bonuses, but 5 years later, that company is going to get leapfrogged by a competitor and by the industry, and they would not have seen it coming. The difference is Procter & Gamble company, or a company like that, applying a Procter & Gamble, or what they call P&G vision of how to lead and manage people. They might be 10% less in sales every year, but they would still be the leader of the industry 5 years later and even stronger than they were 5 years before. So there is this kind of longer term game that companies like Procter & Gamble play, where they're going to hold their employees longer. They're going to outperform their competitors longer. So, to focus just on revenue in the short term and have everyone running 100% just on sales and the numbers, that does not win in the long term. And there's lots of roadkill out there as examples.
Now I know that I'm probably gonna open a can of worms now by saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. And that's by using technology for something that is more human based in a world where the relationship that some will have with HR is a bit robotic anyway. It just seems like it's potentially going to hinder the system as opposed to help it. What would you say to that?
Yeah, well, when it comes to HR technology, and I'll throw in AI as part of that, because today you can't do technology without AI. I think employees are going to be shocked, because what is one of the most fun experiences an employee has when they work at a company? It's often the first month of onboarding where you're meeting people and connecting for the first time. It's the yearly offsite weekend trip with your teammates, right? And you do the workshop with a IO psychologist who comes in and does a personality test. And it's really fun because I get to understand Michael better. Michael gets to understand me. We actually see each other for the first time without the distraction of the numbers of the work. And it's really when companies take the time and invest through talent development or talent management in their people to connect as humans, to even something as simple as the daily lunch with your colleagues, or going to happy hour, or celebrating a holiday season. If you look at people's jobs year to year, those are some of the most powerful, happy, engaged moments, and where it's not work, it's life, right? And that is the most powerful moment in one's career. And guess what? And guess who drives that? HR. So imagine if HR can take the magic of those types of meetings and human connection, and with technology, insert that every day, every moment in an email. What do I mean by that? Let's say Coca-Cola, who is our client, has 10,000 employees. Before, it was too expensive to take 10,000 people to an offsite and have team building, right? Now with AI and technology, Coca-Cola, and with Humantelligence, and I'm sure many companies are going to follow us and do the same, can send a link to everyone, 10,000 people, and say, take this personality test. We as a company want everyone to be seen and to be understood. We are all unique, and we're not tribal, and we're not going to talk about DEI solely based on gender and race and put everybody into a bucket because of their color, their skin, or their group or their country, right? And the people in France and the people in Ireland and England and the people in Nigeria do not all act the same, right? And so this tool is going to allow all of us to understand each other. And like Grammarly, the company that took grammar, which 800 years of grammar, they didn't invent anything new, but just put it with technology at your fingertips so you could use it. We are going to use at Coca-Cola this tool to send out a link. Everyone take it. 10,000 people take it on Monday morning. And as of Monday afternoon, when you write an email, I could write to a guy named Steve Johnson in England. If I've never met him and it's an important email, I click the Humantelligence button and the AI will rewrite the email the way that this guy likes to read and receive information so that it doesn't cause friction or piss him off. It actually lands exactly the way this person wants to receive the information. Another use case in the future where every employee is happier is you're in a collaboration in a virtual meeting, and it'll tell everybody in the meeting, hey, everyone, Mary Smith is really shy and reflective. You guys should call on her twice today, because if not, she's not going to feel included and she won't feel like she belongs. Or, Javier Gonzalez, you're leading this meeting and you're asking for approval or for a budget of $2 million. The 9 people you're presenting to, Javier, are all really deliberate. Javier, you're really decisive. Those 9 people, if you push them between agenda items too quickly, you'll lose them. So imagine everyone becoming a professional IO psychologist at their fingertips in emails, in virtual meetings, when they go into a calendar. This is the future, how HR tech and AI will enhance every person to be the best version of themselves. And more importantly, for every other person in the company to understand each other, similar to the way that we all come to the middle with our spouses over 5 or 6 years. This will happen instantly for 10,000 people in a day. The most powerful transformation ever that HR can happen on a company.
How does that fit with, let's say, differences of opinion? Because a lot of people struggle with differences of opinion, with clashes, with miscommunications, that sort of thing.
Yep.
I imagine with miscommunication that it kind of semi fixes that problem, if not completely removes it. What about differences or of opinion or clashes, or because it would remove personality clashes, I'm hoping. But what about someone might have an idea that somebody else may disagree with? What happens then?
Yeah, so definitely, let's just bucket half of the challenges and friction. And McKinsey came out with a report that said 48% of pain and friction is stylistic, right? One person likes to communicate in a decisive way, somebody likes in a deliberate way. Somebody likes to use data, somebody else is just conceptual, and they're talking past each other. Just stylistic communication difference. This will fix that bucket. But you're right. What if somebody has a different opinion? Someone thinks they should focus on sales and someone thinks they should focus on building the organization, to use a thread of the last example. That's a difference of opinion. That has nothing to do with one's behaviors, motivators, or work styles. What's beautiful about a tool like this is when everyone in emails, in meetings, are being nudged to think and hold space for others before they bring their opinion. Because today, what most people do is, I have my opinion, this is the way we should do it, right? People aren't open to holding space to listen before they speak. Everybody's just pitching their thing. Well, when you actually start to nudge people to think before they write an email, nudge people to go into a meeting, understanding the dynamics of the meeting or the team, you're actually changing behavior to the point where people will now have a skill to listen first, digest, be sensitive of the other person. And so therefore, when they hear the other opinion, even if it's different, the way it will be handled will be much more mature and respectful, because you're trying to understand their point of view, and you'll get to consensus more, or at least even if you still maintain a difference of opinion, it will be handled in a way which has less friction. This also is why our tool is a great product for DEI, because although we don't hit the ratios and we're not tracking gender and race, when you start to be open-minded to how someone else communicates and thinks and their behaviors and what motivates them, you stop looking at people as Black or Hispanic or Indian or white. You just look at every person as a human being, and it gets rid of this charged conversation around, whose tribe are you part of? And so it goes a long way to change that behavior too, and it actually makes companies more open and more inclusive in general.
It makes me think actually that there are a lot more people that would be a lot more compassionate, they'd be more empathetic towards the other person, they'd be able to see things from other people's point of view. And it makes me think that people will just be better human beings. People, when I think it was, can't remember, it was Black Lives Matter or something else, that encouraged people to think more about race than ever before. And it used to drive me a little insane when it people would not like the fact that you didn't necessarily, in air quotes, see color. Because you
I
don't
don't
really
see
have to.
color. I was being racist by saying that. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. Like a tool like ours actually gets you to focus on what's real. I mean, imagine in a meeting, you could have 5 white women all in their 40s. There could be completely a feeling of not belonging because one of those white women might be really decisive and conceptual. The other 4 women are really deliberate and data driven, and it's going to take them longer to make a conclusion. And that decisive conceptual person is just going to be moving fast, and she's not going to feel the same. You can make the same analogy with 5 Black people, 5 Hispanic people. Just to say that you're of the same color, of the same gender, or the same age group doesn't mean that you think and work and are motivated and behave the same ways. That, to me, that's ludicrous. It's kind of like the argument of saying, when companies used to go abroad, they'd do these culture trainings. Oh, well, you're going to France. Let's train you on all French people in 2 hours. Oh, you're going to America. Here's what Americans are like. Here's like, are there some general directional vibrational things? Yes, but at the end of the day, when you're sitting across somebody or you're talking to them on a virtual meeting or writing an email, you have to understand that unique person. The best analogy, when you talked about coming to the middle and just being more human and more like, I don't know what your exact word was, but more sensitive to others. I mean, we all go through that when we get married. I mean, we all live this selfish life. It's our way or the highway. We do whatever we want. We don't have to sacrifice anything. And then you get married. And dating is not even close. We all think, oh, we dated. Oh, we lived together. Oh, now I know what it's going to be like. No, no, no. You get married, and it is a come to Jesus moment where within 5 years, and especially it's accelerated if you have children, the complexities of that relationship on how to be operationally and how to work together, if you don't know or learn how to come to the middle and listen first and approach it differently, you will never succeed. Tools like Humantelligence are bringing that magic that occurs at home, and sometimes in a very painful way for spouses, in a positive, non-painful way at work and instantly.
I wonder how big of a shift it can have, because you mentioned the thinking long term, you mentioned this idea that okay, things maybe in the short term may take a dip, but then from then on it's plain sailing, everyone gets along, everyone likes going to work, you maybe know a little bit more about your colleagues than you would have maybe used to know, but that's in a productive way. It's in a way that helps the company run, as opposed to knowing everyone's inside leg measurement, that kind of thing. And it's just making me think that would this help in a bigger way outside of work? You mentioned relationships and marriage and things, but I'm a big believer in wanting everybody to get along. I don't think that's a grand idea. I think that's very possible. Did you think that this could help everybody generally just get along with one another?
Yeah, so I mean, it's fascinating to me. Most people don't know. I mean, this guy Leonardo da Vinci was truly brilliant. He didn't just start drawing planes before there were planes. He didn't invent a million things that we all are their cornerstones to society today. Do you know what he also invented that most people don't know? And it's very HR related. He was the first person to put together a resume.
Wow.
1502 or 1582. Go look it up on Google. You'll actually pull up Leonardo da Vinci's resume where he lists his competencies and what he's good at. And it's like, it is the first resume ever. Do you know that there's no document in the world that's more pervasive than the resume? And LinkedIn is basically the resume digital version. But so you have over 8 billion people on this planet, and you have about 6 billion resumes. Like driver licenses don't even touch 2 billion. Like Nothing in the world is more, because why? Because you cannot live in society without a job, and you cannot get a job without a resume, period. Hard stop. And so what's so powerful, but also so sad, is the resume and what you've done, your skills, your experiences, your education, only leads to 30% predictive success in any job at any level. 70% of success depends on your behaviors, your motivators, and your work styles, and how that fits culturally, culture fit in those elements with the role you're doing, the team you're working with, and the culture of the company. Okay. And so imagine what's powerful is the resume. Everyone found that you need something for the most important thing in life is career and job, because then you can support a family and you can have health care, you can eat and put a roof over your head. But they got it wrong. It's not just about the 30% predictive. You need the 70%. And that 70% is your personality and your behaviors and your motivating work styles. And does that fit in company A versus company B? Because you could actually be the top salesperson at a consumer products company like Coca-Cola and be the number one sales guy or girl in Tennessee, have the same exact job running sales in Tennessee for PepsiCo, and fail miserably because the personality and the culture fits wrong. You could be a top neurosurgeon at Baptist Health Hospital and then go over to Mercy Hospital, which is a mile away in South Florida, and fail miserably because the way that surgery is done there, the way people work together is completely different. Culture is the biggest differentiator for success. And to your question of how our tool, Humantelligence, and these psychometrics flowing through everything can change the world in a much more powerful way. Imagine if when everyone graduates high school, you don't just have the one-page resume, but on the back you have your personality test, so that now it is flowing through all platforms and systems. So when you do a search on LinkedIn for a job today, and I was a recruiter for 10 years, you do a search for candidates for any job posting, you get 1,000 to 2,000 people. Well, guess what happens? You go through like 30. So all the thousands who apply never get spoken to, and they hate LinkedIn for that reason. And you're going through 30 or 50, and you still don't find the right person, and it's just a lot of white noise. Imagine a day when everybody has their psychometrics tied to their resume and flowing through all systems. You do a search for somebody for a job at your company, and it's matching all the high performers in your company in that role that succeed. And what are the 7 out of 28 attributes? What are their 2 motivators or 2 behaviors, 2 work styles that make those people successful at your company? Now you do a search on LinkedIn for that, and it pops up 6 people. The search is done in a week. You interview those 6, and now you have your hire. Imagine the candidates, they don't have to apply to 400 jobs and never get heard from. They get proposed jobs and say, hey, you want to work in medicine as a nurse, you want to work in academia as a professor, you want to work in investment banking in New York. Here are the 2 jobs where you would be fast-tracked to be promoted. Little Javier could go into McDonald's in South Beach on Lincoln Road and apply for a job and put in his information, and it says, hey, Javier, McDonald's, you're not a fit for them, but 2 blocks behind you, there's a Subway. You're actually the perfect profile for a leadership role, right, and a career track to be there 10 years and to be successful, right? That is the beauty of when psychometrics and personalities are being used for the positive, not just in your company, but in your career and in your life. Imagine going to the doctor's office and they match you with a doctor or a nurse who's aligned with you. Imagine going to a dating app, and instead of it being, let me cut and paste and write the 100 women, because that's what guys do, and just hope one of these lands, the email gets rewritten to the person you're writing to the way that they like to read information. So you can actually land better each email and understand them better, and vice versa. Imagine you get an Uber driver that isn't chatty if you don't want a chatty box Uber driver. You get to pick people based on who you like. Imagine insurance companies reducing premiums for those people who risk averse, who aren't going to have accidents because their behaviors, what motivates in their work styles, and basically how they make decisions are not going to lead to accidents. And the people who do lead to a lot of accidents are going to pay higher premiums. Same thing with healthcare. This would transform society so that everyone can live their highest vibration and experience other people in every facet of their life in a better way.
What'd be fascinating to me as well is that 70% are also things that you might be able to shape in a way, but they're born with a way of thinking. They're born with a way of processing information. So you end up having the job that's perfect for you as a person, and the rest you can learn. Like the skills of the job, you can probably learn.
And that's the key, what you just said. You're born directionally with certain things, just like an athlete is born right-handed or left-handed. No one is born ambidextrous. But when you see a professional basketball player, what have they done? They now can dribble with both hands. They can shoot with both hands. And maybe they grew up and their power move, their superpower was the baseline jump shot from the right, and they sucked from the left. They get to college, they work on that a little bit more. And then they get the NBA, and they have now the need for them to succeed. They need to have a jumper from the top of the key, which they never really did. In life, being agile as a human being is what will lead to success in sports, in any sport, soccer, right foot, left foot, not having a header as a striker at Liverpool, and all of a sudden now you have a header. You need these different dimensions. In career, it's the same. And it's the job of the company to develop those other dimensions so that you have dualities. So if you are data-driven, you can learn to be conceptual. So that if you are decisive, you can learn to not be decisive some moments and be deliberate and reflect on things first. And so a tool like ours is not to pigeonhole or profile people. It's to give them the insights and the mirror, if you will, so that they can develop both things, because the best teammate on an employee team, the best leader of a team, the best CEO of a company knows how to be the things they weren't naturally born to be. And so a tool like this will help the whole world develop their duality in every attribute of their behaviors, of what motivates them and their work styles. So it's actually the most important self-development, talent development tool in the world that people aren't using effectively. And the reason is it's been too cost prohibitive. It's been only for executives, and psychometrics have always been a one and done tool. That model of your grandfather's personality test or assessment. So think predictive index, strength finders, Caliper, Berkman, Thompson, all of those tools are not embedded in all your workflows. The future is a model like Grammarly, where all of that is just flowing in any document, any tool, any software that you're using at any moment. I mean, one day I'm going to wear glasses, and when I meet somebody at the street, it's going to be showing me on the glasses how to communicate better with them, how to connect better. And is that cheating? Are people going to say, well, that's wrong? That's going to lead to people not trying to understand others. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, if they're tools to help bring the world closer together and reduce friction, why not? I got pissed off when I learned 5 languages. It took my whole life. I spent 20 hours a week for 30 years learning languages, speak like English, so that I could go around the world and connect and learn about other cultures. And I thought, wow, what a gift. But it was hard. It took my whole life. And then about 5 years ago, I heard about an earplug you could put in that when you go to China, you go to France, it just translates. So you don't even have to speak the language. And my first ego-driven reaction was, that's not fair. That technology isn't making people understand other cultures. That's not fair. I spent my whole life learning language and practicing and struggling. And then you let your ego talk, and then you get past that like defensive fear-based vibration. And then I thought, wow, Juan, what a beautiful invention and innovation. Now, instead of some privileged little prick like me who went to Harvard, who had access to languages, was born speaking Spanish fluently because of my Cuban parents, now every middle-class American, every middle-class French, every middle-class Nigerian can experience the world like you did. It's the most powerful invention I've ever heard of. Isn't that amazing?
It is, and it's making me want to lean towards, okay, well, everyone should have this, everyone should. But then if we live in a world where everything is ever so slightly tweaked into the way that's best for us, would there be people that would struggle to trust the system if they felt like they were being like manipulated in some way? But it'd be harder to trust it if it's
For sure.
always angled in that way. Someone might sit and think, can I trust this person? I feel like they know too much.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great that you bring up trust. So our system actually brings trust into an organization and makes companies and entire organizations trust each other more, because if you're showing more of yourself, you're going to foster more trust. So it conceptually just makes sense that if, imagine you go to a date with a woman and she's like, well, I'm not going to tell you anything about me. I'm not going to even tell you what makes me happy. Good luck on that date. Right. Yeah. This is the same at work. Everybody has their game face. Nobody wants anybody to know anything about them. Well, that does not foster trust. So the tool does foster trust at scale, enterprise wide. Now, the problem is we do have over 2 million people who've done this tool at companies, thousands of companies. The problem is you do have, and you make it voluntary, gets around the privacy issue. Okay. And so 8%. So 8 out of 100 people actually don't participate. They don't want to. So you end up with 92% who trust this concept and actually will take it and they love it and we're raving fans, and adoption and usage is like 75%, like 15, 20 times a month. But there is this form of trust. What we find is, lawyers, we tried to sell law firms. Lawyers don't like this tool. They feel like, oh, I don't want people to know me. Like, it's like there's no trust there. The worker unions in Europe, so France and Germany, we stopped selling in France and Germany because the worker unions think, oh, this is Big Brother. They want even more data about me. This can't be good. No, let's not allow this. So, on just rolling out a platform like this, like Humantelligence, there is some trust issues. Okay. Now, in terms of once it's being used, usually if somebody's already taken it, they're not going to feel like, oh, well, is what they're writing authentic, or are they just writing that because they know it's going to land better? At the end of the day, does your spouse think, oh, wow, that really landed well by my husband. He used to be really rude, but that was really polite. Oh, crap. That's not authentic. He's just doing that to get me on his good side. Like, it's a really sinister perspective. If someone's communicating with you, it doesn't matter if they used a tool or it came from their own mind. If they adapted their behavior so that it lands well, let's just call that a success and walk away.
Yeah, it's a weird way of thinking, isn't it? Because it's interesting you brought up lawyers because they're inherently not trustworthy. It's part of their job. It makes me
Correct.
think, well, maybe that could be the issue. Like if you have trust issues, in air quotes, to begin with, this may exacerbate that. It may make that worse if all of a sudden everyone's being suddenly nice and everyone really understanding all of a sudden. Why is that? Why would they do that all of a sudden? It seems like you would have to have some inherent trust issues to begin with for that to press your buttons and think, hang on, there's more going on here.
Yeah, well, it's similar to this whole DEI conversation. So we pitch to many heads of DEI at large companies, and it shocks me because they have teams of 15 people. Their budgets are $10 million. And they're doing training programs that are solely focused on gender and race. So getting people together just to talk about the Black experience, the Hispanic experience, the LGBTQ experience, right? But you can't scale that. And they'll have a company of 10,000 people. And they're like, yeah, this year we hit 300 people. And I'm thinking, wow, $10 million, 300 people, and armies of training and all these hours outside from work. Okay. And the other 9,700, okay, that'll take 1,000 years to actually do that. Okay. And at the end of the day, when you have 5 Black people in a meeting, or 5 white people, or 5 Hispanics, or 5 women, are they really talking about those things, or are they trying to connect and work together? Okay. And so then I'm like, well, here's another tool that you can add to your portfolio that doesn't tackle gender, race, but actually will hit all 10,000 people to be more inclusive about every person, so that they all then will start to understand about Blacks and Hispanics and women issues. They'll just be more open-minded. Do you want a tool like that? Because your tools cost 10 million for touching 300 people. What about our tool that costs $1 per person per month? So basically, 10,000 people, that's literally 120,000 a year versus 10 million to change 10,000 people's perspective about inclusion. You know what they tell me? No, not interested. We're only focused on gender and race. Like, they are so wrong and off about what inclusion and belonging means that they can't even get out of their own box. And they actually are falling prey to what they're trying to solve.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of analogy with the whole thing. It's like they've so cornered in. Race is a touchy topic for anyone to really talk about, but I wonder if everyone highlighted what their race was, that almost segregates people even more and puts everybody in this box even more so than saying, look, we're all just people and we're all humans. We're all working for this company. We're all trying to make our ends meet while making the company's ends meet. We're all just trying to work together to do that. It doesn't really matter what color your skin is, doesn't matter what your heritage is, what your family history is, whether you flew over on a UFO or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'd love to know if they did, to be fair. But like it doesn't change or shouldn't change how they work at the company. It shouldn't change what they do from a day-to-day basis. What changes is how they do that. It changes how much
Correct. And
communication do they need versus, just getting the job done.
yeah, and I'm okay with everyone, labeling themselves and sharing, if they are Hispanic, if they're Puerto Rican versus Cuban, or if Black, what from what tribe in Africa they came from. I think that's important for everyone to know. I think that kind of education is great. But to only do that is what's so maddening, because you also should understand that how the person behaves and what motivates them and what their work styles are. And it's the lack of understanding of other things, which is unfortunate in the whole DEI. There's 47 categories that actually apply to DEI, and unfortunately they only focus on two. That's the problem.
Yeah, so it's just helping with the bigger picture. I think more companies need a more holistic approach. They need something that factors in how complex humans are. Like if you have a bad day, it'd be nice to know, because things all change, things all shift, and we need to be able to adjust to that, not to manipulate you, but to make sure that the information is received in the right way. That's one of the things that I've come to understand anyway. It's not about the information. It's not really necessarily about how it's shared, it's about how it's received. It's about the person on the receiving end. How do they take it in and absorb it? And I think that can make all the difference.
It's so funny you say that. We have this thing I implemented when I started my company. So every week I have my one-on-ones, and everybody in my company with their subordinates, when they have a one-on-one, you start with, what's your mood meter? Not what did you succeed? What did you accomplish? What are you going to work on? What's your mood meter? And that would change completely the course of those 30-minute one-on-ones, because if someone's like 9 and you're, or 10, most people are realistic, so 10s are very rare, but 9, then things are good generally. Like that number explaining who I am and where I am this moment allows me to just, okay, let's get into the numbers then. Like, okay, what did you do? Like, but if someone says 4, oh, well, what's wrong? Is it something work related, personal? Oh yeah, my cousin just died, or I had a car accident this morning. Like things that you're not going to ask about every day, but it's been great because it really makes the relationship human. And that's regardless of color of skin, race, gender, and even regardless of behaviors and motives and work styles. Something that I think everyone should know. This is fundamental at the end of the day. What's your mood and how can I help?
That's a very, very interesting point, because I can't tell you how many times I've had an amazing day. I felt really, really good, and the job doesn't even touch the sides of that. Like I go into work and I feel amazing. Doesn't matter how hard the job is, how complex it is, how many people I've got to facilitate and compromise and meet in the middle. I still finish with a smile on my face and as if the job wasn't really all that hard today. And then if I'm a number 4, like what you said, everything's hard and
Yep.
everything pecks at my ever so smaller fuse, and I'll probably blow up at everybody. I'll probably be short with everyone, and the whole day, like, two different people, two completely different human beings.
Yep.
And it would be nice if there was a way of being able to communicate that, because sometimes you have an amazing day one day, didn't sleep so great. I don't know, maybe you stub your toe on the table or the water was
Yeah.
cold, or
Whatever the may
any
be. Yeah.
number of things could make you go from a 10 to a 7. And then from one day to the next day, you could be a completely different person based on how your morning went. Like if you've got kids in a family, you think, oh, it took us 4 times as long to get the kids ready for school,
Oh yeah, or
all
the
of
kid
that
was
sort
sick.
of
I
stuff.
didn't sleep last night.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
by the way, to that point, here's a great product feature. LinkedIn, if you're listening, and even companies, imagine on LinkedIn they have like, if it's a little green circle if you're online, and not if you're not. Okay, that's great, but what if someone got no sleep or has a huge presentation and they're stressed like hell? They probably don't want to get an in-mail. So imagine if you actually had the 5 smiley faces, like I'm like the mood meter concept, like a mood meter feature on LinkedIn, where everybody, before you write a LinkedIn, before contact someone, you can see for that moment, that day, is it a super smiley, a okay smiley, a neutral, or like negative, or like furious red face, like I've had a horrible day. You probably wouldn't write on certain days, and you would actually, or you might ask and lend a hand, like, hey, see, you're having a bad day, how can I help? Like imagine if LinkedIn had a mood meter feature.
It would definitely decrease my communication anyway, because I would just
Yeah.
probably be the kind of person that would just leave it on bad day.
Bad day every day.
There's some people that just not send me
Well,
all
they
those
find
weird
correlations with
messages.
the cloudy, rainy weather in England, and
Yeah, yeah. Just
every
don't talk to
spouse
me
should
in
have
Windsor
that.
because of
You
the
walk
weather.
into your home from work and you can see on the chest like a button, like if your spouse is happy, middle, or sad or pissed before they speak.
Oh, crazy. I mean, I think it would help. And I think I'd have to have a chuckle every day because everyone just leaves it on like happy, and you look at their face and you think, you haven't changed your mood meter this morning. What's happened? It would make interactions so much better or streamlined anyway. You know, when you sort of think it'd be nice if things were a bit more focused in, a little bit more strategic, a little bit more just easier. Like it's so hard to speak to some people these days that you're never going to get it right. You're never
Yep,
going to have the interactions that work, that are effective. And then if you're a manager at a company, you're going to have such a hard time, such a difficult day where everything that you say gets received the wrong way. And you will think that you're doing a terrible job, even though you're not. It's just the little tweaks that can make the big difference. But the impression will be, 10 employees, 10 management, and everyone looks at you funny because you've said the same thing in three different ways, and every single one was not right.
correct.
You think you're really bad at your job. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's definitely a weird world that we're in, and I like some of the other things that I mean. Does AI actually help that? Because this sounds like it's an amazing thing, being able to use technology, being able to see things ahead of time so that you can prepare, so that you can adjust. I mean, AI is spooky to most people now. Can you imagine if it learned everything that it could about us, able to process things at the speed that it's able to, and it would be a bit spooky.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have 2,000 years of history to know that the most powerful things in the world, tools, people, or energy, if used for the good, is transformational and beautiful for society. If used for the bad, will destroy society. So let's look at, you know, a a large shipping fleet in the 1500s. You could become the most powerful country in the world and bring trade and commerce to the world, or you could use it to conquer and colonize. Right? Beautiful, horrible. You could have a great speaker in the world like Gandhi who moves people for the better, or you could have a Hitler, or you could have a Fidel Castro that does it to destroy millions of people's lives. Right? I think energy, nuclear bombs, nuclear energy could be used for solving the energy crisis of the world, or nuclear energy could be used to kill millions, right? All these examples basically show you the duality of the most powerful things in history: what people, tools, resources, and AI is no different. And just like all those other things I mentioned, right? The beginning of a powerful, when people identify something so powerful, the first place people go as human beings is the fear-based scarcity. It's going to hurt us. But as they put in controls, as we learn how to leverage it, people are going to realize that it's going to be equally or more so positive for society and change the way we all live for the better, taking another 20% out of poverty, educating another 50% of the world that didn't have education, using a tool like Humantelligence to deliver insights about each other so we can all get along better at our jobs, with our spouses, in any interaction with other human beings. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually going to enhance people, not replace people. So I get it. I was scared of the internet when it came out, right? I used a typewriter through college, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like the forgotten generation. Like I actually have to learn this thing called the internet. Even when AI came for my own company, my first thought was, oh my God, this is going to put my company out of business. I hate it. And we fought internally, all of our employees, like, no, let's not make it. It'll make it too easy, because the version before the AI was you actually had to read about somebody and then think and then rewrite your email. AI, you just write your email. You don't think, you just push a button. It's easy. But guess what? Gen Zers and millennials have been brought up where things are easy. So why should I impose and project on them a version of my tool of Humantelligence where they actually have to think, right? And so what we did was we found a middle ground. We give the answer when you write an email, but we also score it and say, this is, you were about 80% right or 30% right. And here's why we did it this way. And so come with like the concept of like when your boss redlines your paper and explains why, we don't just give the fish to the man or the woman, we teach them how to fish. And for Generation Z and millennials who don't have soft skills, who are the future leaders of companies, they need to learn soft skills. So our clients love that we are developing and training Gen Zers and millennials, because in that email, we explain why the person's different and how the email was rewritten. And that's key. So it wasn't just use AI, it was also adapting it to use AI and explain why. And so every tool, every industry will come to a middle ground where it's going to help people. And some industries will be lost, right? And some industries will be, but history shows that every group of people, whether it's hundreds or thousands or millions, that get displaced by one technology, land fine and open up a whole new area of jobs. So, history repeats itself for a reason. God does not sleep at the wheel. We're all fine.
That is a fantastic way to end, Juan. It's been fantastic. I really hope that we are able to get along. And I think as long as it is used in the right way, in the appropriate way, then it'll definitely help as opposed to hinder us. So for those that want to learn more about you, about the company, about Humantelligence, where can people find out more?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, Humantelligence. We've combined two words, so don't put the IN in the middle. So humantelligence.com. And they can you can email me at juan@humantelligence.com if you have anything specific you want to say or feedback on today's podcast.
Thanks so much for being a guest on the show. Those that are listening, feel free to subscribe, share the show, tell others, and also leave a review wherever you are listening into your podcasts. Juan, it's been great. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to keeping in touch. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Michael.